Hello everyone. So this video is going to be a number of little segments about realizations that Ma Kali has helped me come to. Really provided channels for me to realize these things. So as some of y'all might know, I've been getting closer to Ma Kali again, getting close to her and focusing on her rather than my other various spiritual paths, but really focusing on where my heart is, where my soul is most aligned, and it's with Ma Kali. Through meditation, puja, and mantra recitation, I found that there's a number of things that, realizations that she has brought me to through getting closer to her, through really seeing her as my divine mother and focusing on that more than focusing on, all these other spiritual activities that I do, but focusing on her, focusing on mantra, recitation, and obviously meditation and puja, focusing on these things, but directed with her. She has taken down some barriers and opened my eyes to things that I didn't really realize before. Really in a, foot to the pavement kind of way. If you're getting closer to a God or teaching, scripture, whatever it is, you know that you're making progress if you have some really practical lessons that have been helping you. Really practical lessons that, to somebody who doesn't believe in spiritual paths at all might think, oh, okay, well, you're just coming to these yourself. But no, getting close to her has really opened my eyes in a lot of seemingly little ways, but have made big impacts in my life. At any rate, let's just go into some of the realizations that Ma Kali has brought me to, and some things that she has unveiled for myself, and I hope that these help you in your life as well. Life is not that long. We don't know what kind of karma that we have from past lives, and we might not fully understand or appreciate the karma that we've developed in this life. There's a whole lot of barriers between us and realizing why our life is the way it is. A lot of spiritual masters and teachers have, always said, if something comes, then let it come. If you really want something and it doesn't seem like you can get it, first of all, figure out why you want something. What is the deeper motivation behind it? But if you do feel like there's an essential part of your being that's not being satisfied, or there's a central part of yourself that you just can't, make that dream come true, masters always said, just let it come. Try, but if it doesn't come, then just let it come. And if it doesn't come, then it just wasn't meant to be yet. It's a really kind of loving way to say, you don't know what kind of karma that you've made, and you don't know what karma has in store for you as a result. Not necessarily karma has in store for you, but what your past actions have in store for you. You don't know. So, be prepared to and be able to detach. Be able to detach, live in detachment. Doesn't mean you can't work for your dreams. Doesn't mean you can't work towards something that you want. But there's a whole lot of pain caught up in us suffering when we didn't have to. Suffering ahead of something happening, imagining what might go wrong, or imagining not achieving this dream, not being able to get this or that, not being able to make yourself into this person. There's a whole lot of pain caught up in just imagining that that's going to be the case. That's why detachment is such a good thing to develop within yourself. Try to understand your motivations. Develop the ability to detach while still working towards your dreams. Because you don't know if it's going to work out. You don't know if you're going to be able to do and you don't know if maybe it's not even necessarily karma per se, but it's more that, you're not doing something correctly, and you keep on relying upon not doing something correctly and expecting the result that you want. So there's a lot of ways that we don't understand. There's a lot of karma built up, and we don't know if we're going to achieve what we desire in this life. And, you can always have in the back of your head, like, maybe in another life I can achieve this. I'll keep trying. Doesn't mean give up. But figure out if what you're trying to achieve is really going to complete you as a person. And perhaps there's a different perspective you could take on life and be like, okay, me existing, I'm going to use this life to the best of my ability in the ways that I can, beside needing to have this dream be completed, needing to be this person, needing to achieve this or that. Instead of needing that, try your best. Karma's not a good excuse to be lazy. Try your best, but just allow things to come if they're going to come, and do not tear yourself apart when they don't come, or when it doesn't seem like, it's in the cards. it's good to not rely upon hope and not cling to it so tenaciously. Instead of clinging to hope, cling to acceptance that whatever you want, whatever you desire, whatever you're trying to do, you might not be able to do it. You might not achieve that. Cling to acceptance of things as they are, and you're going to avoid a whole lot of pain and suffering. Instead of using hope as something that is your life raft through this world, let acceptance of things as they are for yourself and for the world in general, let acceptance of it, even if you don't like it, even if you don't, even if you recognize, things should be better for the world, for myself, even if you recognize that, still be able to practice acceptance and detachment from the fruits of your labor. There's a whole lot in the Bhagavad Gita talking about, even in other scriptures, even other religions, saying, labor, but don't hold on tenaciously to the idea of how great the fruits are going to be from your labor. Don't tenaciously hold on to hope, as strange as that sounds. Hold on to the resilience and ability to accept things as they are. And don't use that as an excuse not to work hard or not to, try towards what you truly want. But, if things don't come, they might just not come. And just try to be okay with that. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. It's going to make your life a whole lot less painful. I can't remember if it was Seneca or Epictetus, but it was a Stoic philosopher that said, we suffer far more in imagination than reality. It doesn't mean that we imagine that we're suffering and so we are, but we imagine ourselves in a better position or with this or that or with better stuff or with our dreams, accomplished. And then we try to compare it to what things as they are, and that causes suffering. That's suffering that you don't need. That's suffering that you can work past by looking at the world with less attachment to future results, even while laboring once more. I hate to keep on reiterating this point, but it's such a valuable point. Things might not turn out as you want them. We may labor in vain. But laboring in vain doesn't have to mean that we give up on experiencing life. There's a whole bunch of little things that we can learn to appreciate. There's a whole bunch to life that we can learn to appreciate. Our happiness doesn't have to be predicated with conditions of accomplishment. We're placing extra conditions on life that keeps us from experiencing it. Experience life. Enjoy the little things. Enjoy what you have. Enjoy trying. And you'll find that life becomes a whole lot more open, free, and honestly beautiful. I've often, and still, I've been much better recently, but I've often been like, I'm never going to meet that woman who I connect with intellectually really well, and I connect with spiritually really well. I'm placing condition, if I'm so focused on that, and it just keeps on not happening, first of all, what do I really want? How much is it connected to lust? How much? What am I really looking for spiritually and intellectually? It's good to ask these questions. It might not be the same situation for you, but it's good to ask these questions. But don't place the conditions of if I don't achieve this, and I'm just going to be miserable. For instance, for me, being miserable in my loneliness. By placing happiness with extra limitations as to what happiness looks like for me, then I'm basically ensuring that if I don't, get what I am supposedly looking for, that I'll be miserable. That doesn't have to be the case. So if for my situation, get used to accepting, just that kind of loneliness, that kind of romantic relationship where I have that spiritual and intellectual connection. Get used to loneliness in that way and access deeper levels of love, deeper levels of connection. And those levels are always accessible. Everything that we want to experience, the capability is within us. It may be sparked by external stimuli, but all the capability is within us. I think it was Sadhguru that said, if we sit by ourselves and we're miserable, then we're in bad company. We need to make ourselves into somebody who could be happy without everything that we think will make us happier. And that is something I think that we could all just remember throughout our daily lives as much as possible. As much as we despair, we should remember that. Ma Kali teaches us about corruption. So corruption you could say, true darkness, because her kind of darkness is the vastness, is the freedom of a void to move and think, even within our own minds. She moves aside negative thoughts. She moves aside negative energies within our mind, and we are able to truly think clearly. But when it comes to not the void-like darkness, but the darkness of corruption, she teaches us about that. She teaches us that life, and choosing the side of life, not the side of the corruption of life, but pure life, free life, and joyous life. The life of, you know how children are always so joyful for no reason at all. In a way, we kind of become like that again with Makali. We become children in the positive ways, not the negative ways. But the corruption of life, the corruption of you can say our own innocence, but also our own connection to life. The corruption of that, when we hold on to, once again, materialistic desires, but the desire for the immortality of our ideas that were formed on a baseless foundation, like wanting name and fame, just to be seen as being better, just to be seen as having more value than somebody else, rather than seeing everything as having equal value. The darkness and corruption of kind of harming ourselves and others through how we speak, self-deprecating ourselves, or thinking that we're less and just saying, oh, I'm just a piece of crap, or oh, I'm just lazy, or something like that. She pulls us away from that, and she makes us look at, okay, you know, you're displaying laziness, but you are not that. You are not laziness. You are not that. For instance, I don't like using the word sin, but you know how people use the word sin a lot. Not identifying, listen, even if you think of something as a sin, you know, okay, you might have done a sin, but you are not a sinner. You're not identified with what you did wrong. You're not identified with that temporary corruption that you chose, or that temporary, evil darkness that you chose. You know, I'm using a lot of very dualistic words that usually we as Shaktas and worshippers of Ma Kali don't really think in terms of. But, you know, for the sake of people who, you know, are either in the West or familiar with Christianity, these are some really basic, easy to understand examples and ways to elaborate on them. But don't identify with what you did wrong. Don't put yourself as being nothing but that. Identify with the life and the soul that's within you. That's past all the stuff, any negative stuff that you did externally. Learn from it. Move forward. Don't keep on identifying with what you did wrong, because you'll definitely do it again. You'll trick yourself into thinking that this is just the way that you are, and then you're going to do something negative again and again and again. It could be something as simple as littering. Like, everybody litters. It's not like me not littering wouldn't do anything, or it's not like I can really stop how much we polluted this world and the, you know, millions of tons of trash that's in the seas and landfills. What is me not throwing a piece of plastic drink cup out the window when I'm going by, I don't know, when you're on some road and you just throw it into nature, you just throw it on the street, you know. It's just another cup, for instance. Instead of trying to justify it, being like, yeah, littering's not so bad, I'm a litterer, screw it. Instead of doing that, being like, okay, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should do my little part and not litter, not pollute the environment further, no matter how polluted it is. Or, you know, if we expand it to bigger things, like no matter how, you know, corrupt or selfish people are, instead of just identifying the selfishness and just thinking you as just like everybody else, because everybody's selfish, instead of doing that, be like, you know what, I'm going to do my part and not be selfish. I'm going to do my part, not litter. I'm going to do my part and work on myself. Because rather than trying to conquer everything externally, or just trying to make value judgments on everything externally or how things are, instead of doing all that, say, how am I going to be? How am I going to be as a person? Despite how everything is, despite what everybody does, how am I going to choose to be as a person? This is the kingdom that we have to conquer right here. Heart, mind, soul. Well, we kind of walk around this life with, you know, through an ego, through an individualized person, so that the soul will learn. But, you know, how am I going to embrace my soul? How am I going to not dominate my soul, but how am I going to tap into that frequency that is love, the love frequency? So the more we delve within ourselves, the more we realize that, all these yogis, all these sadhus, all these, you could say, holy men or men of self-liberation, they may seem alone to the eyes, because they might have friends around, like we would usually think of. They don't have sex, they don't have lovers. To a regular person, that would seem very lonely. But no, they're always, the legitimate ones are always tapped into this frequency of love. They're a part of love. They embrace that frequency, and they just exist in love constantly. They don't need outward manifestations to grab or to validate that love. They tune into the frequency by taking away all the other attachments, all the other body identifications, all the other social norms, or how society values people. They take away all that in favor of that deeper love frequency, of the frequency that's closer to what their soul is, how the soul burns as a bright star with energy. They get closer and closer to that, and that love frequency gets vaster and more intense. And it's almost like they're swimming through love. They're swimming through kind of an ocean of love, and they just see it. They can feel it and they can see it. And to our naked eyes, to our flawed sense of understanding and perception, it might seem like a lonely life, but in reality, it's anything but lonely. It's more lonely to just seek outward validation, outward physical and even verbal, I guess you could say, but physical validation of, oh, I matter to people, and I'm important, and I have friends, and ooh, I have a lover. They seek the internal, the eternal validation that just is just a solid frequency to exist in and feel that love all the time, to be an extension of that love, to feel yourself as an extension. And so it's, to the naked eye, it seems lonely, but to the naked heart, not of stone, not wrapped in all these layers of judgment, attachment, fear, and societal discrimination, choose a different kind of discrimination. A discrimination that takes away the usual understanding of how a human operates to how a soul operates, how a soul feels. And that love frequency in which a soul, when our ego tears away all these boundaries, that love frequency that a soul just exists in, we start to feel, death can't touch me if this is what I identify with. And loneliness can't touch me. This is a love frequency, and I'm a part of it. It doesn't necessarily emanate from me, but if I tap into that, then I just ride that frequency through life, ride that frequency through realization, and through our paths in all ways. It's remarkable to tear down those barriers and not see things with societal eyes. It's quite remarkable.